The first thing that bothered me about Exit 14 was how nobody at dispatch would talk about it. Every trucker on the night routes knew the stories. Drivers disappearing, emergency calls cutting off mid-sentence, headlights seen moving beyond the barricades after midnight. But officially, Exit 14 didn't exist anymore. The state closed it 6 years ago after a massive pileup killed 11 people during a fog storm. At least that's what they told the public. Around 1:12 a.m., my radio crackled. Unit 32, stranded motorist reported near Exit 14. Then silence. A long silence, before dispatch came back and quietly said, "Disregard that call." I'd been driving nights for Harrison Towing for almost 3 years before I first heard about Exit 14. Most overnight calls were simple. Dead batteries, blown tires, drunk drivers sliding into ditches after bars closed. The kind of work you could do half awake once you learned the routes. But every driver in the county knew there was one stretch of highway you avoided after midnight. Interstate 87 between mile markers 201 and 203. Nobody liked talking about why. The truckers called it the dead stretch. State police never parked there. Highway maintenance crews refused night assignments near it. Even GPS systems started acting strange once you got close, rerouting drivers for no reason or freezing completely for several seconds. And right in the middle of that stretch sat Exit 14. Or at least, it used to. Officially, the exit had been removed 6 years earlier after a chain reaction pileup during heavy fog killed 11 people. The state sealed the off-ramp with concrete barricades and removed it from every updated highway map afterward. But the old overhead sign was still there. Exit 14. Green paint faded, reflectors dead, just hanging over the highway like the state forgot it existed. Around 2 a.m., I pulled onto the shoulder near mile marker 200 to help a stranded semi with a shredded tire. Cold rain tapped steadily against the tow truck while I worked. The driver, an older guy named Rick, stood nearby smoking nervously while I tightened chains onto the axle. "You local?" he asked. "Born here," I said. Rick glanced down the highway. "You ever been past Exit 14 after midnight?" I laughed lightly. "You trying to scare me?" His expression didn't change. "I'm serious." Wind hissed through the trees lining the interstate. Somewhere farther ahead, fog drifted low across the road. Rick lowered his voice. "About an hour ago, I saw headlights down there." "Okay." "The road's closed." That made me pause for a second. Rick stared toward the darkness beyond the highway curve. "They were moving slow," he whispered. "Like traffic." I followed his gaze. Nothing but rain, wet asphalt, dark woods. Then my CB radio crackled suddenly beside us. Static burst through the speaker. A woman's voice cut through it for half a second. "Please, somebody answer me." Then silence. Rick immediately stepped backward from the truck. His cigarette slipped from his fingers. Because the voice hadn't come through dispatch, it came through an inactive emergency channel nobody used anymore. Rick refused to stay another minute after the radio transmission. The second that woman's voice disappeared into static, he crushed his cigarette under his boot and climbed back into the cab of his semi without another word. I stood there in the rain watching him. "You seriously leaving?" I shouted over the sound of the highway. Rick rolled his window down halfway. "If your dispatch sends you near Exit 14 tonight," he said carefully, "don't answer anybody on the radio." Then he pulled back onto the interstate and disappeared into the darkness. For a while, I just sat inside my tow truck trying to convince myself the whole thing was stupid. Old truckers loved ghost stories, and static could make anything sound creepy at 2 in the morning. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about that voice. Please, somebody answer me. Around 2:37 a.m., dispatch finally radioed me again. Unit 32. I grabbed the mic immediately. Go ahead. A pause. Then, we've got another stranded motorist report near mile marker 202. That was directly beside exit 14. I frowned. Didn't you tell me to disregard the last call? Another pause, longer this time. Caller reported engine failure. Dispatch continued flatly, completely ignoring my question. Vehicle described as a dark sedan on the shoulder. Rain hammered softly against the windshield. I looked toward the empty highway ahead. Anybody else available? No. Something about the dispatcher's voice felt wrong now. Too calm, too rehearsed, almost nervous. I checked the GPS mounted beside the dashboard. The route instantly appeared. Exit 14. A cold knot formed in my stomach. The exit shouldn't even exist on updated maps, but there it was, glowing on the screen like it had never been removed at all. I stared at it for several seconds before muttering, "What the hell?" The closer I drove toward mile marker 202, the worse the fog became. Not normal fog either. This sat low against the asphalt in thick rolling patches that swallowed the shoulder whole before drifting away again. Traffic around me gradually disappeared until I was completely alone on the interstate. No headlights, no taillights, nothing. Then I saw the sign, Exit 14. The old green overhead marker emerged from the fog above the highway, and beneath it, the concrete barricades blocking the off-ramp had been shoved partially aside, just enough space for a single vehicle to pass through. Fresh tire tracks disappeared into the darkness beyond them. My headlights illuminated something farther down the abandoned exit road. A pair of dim, red taillights, sitting perfectly still, waiting. I should have turned around the second I saw the barricades moved. Instead, I eased the tow truck through the opening. The tires rolled slowly between concrete barriers, slick with rainwater. For a moment, my headlights swept across old warning signs bolted to the guardrails. Road closed. State Order 51218. The lettering looked faded, weathered, like it had been sitting there for years, untouched. Then the fog swallowed everything behind me. I checked the mirrors automatically. The interstate was gone. Not hidden. Gone. My headlights now illuminated only the narrow exit road winding through dense trees on both sides. The air felt wrong immediately. Too still. No wind. No insects. No sound except the low growl of the tow truck engine. Ahead of me, the taillights remained motionless in the darkness. I picked up the radio mic. "Dispatch, I found the vehicle." Only static answered. Then a burst of overlapping voices flooded through the speaker. Screaming, metal crunching, people crying. For half a second I heard a man yell, "The fog!" The transmission cut violently. I dropped the mic back onto the seat. My pulse had started hammering now. The road curved sharply left ahead. As I rounded it, the sedan finally came into view. Dark blue, engine off, driver door hanging open. Rainwater streamed down the empty interior. I slowed beside it carefully. "Hello?" Nothing. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the cold rain. The silence out there felt enormous. The kind of silence where your brain starts inventing sounds just to fill it. My boots splashed across wet pavement as I approached the sedan. No blood, no crash damage, no keys, no driver. But the windshield was covered in condensation from the inside, like someone had been sitting there recently. I wiped a section clear with my sleeve and froze. Finger marks covered the fogged glass from inside the car. Dozens of them. Long streaks dragged downward across the windshield like someone had been clawing at it in panic. A sudden beam of headlights appeared behind me. I spun around immediately. Another vehicle was coming down the exit road, slowly. Its headlights glowed dim through the fog as it rolled toward us in total silence. No engine noise, no tire sound, just movement. The vehicle passed beside me at barely 10 miles an hour. Old station wagon, mud covering the sides. Inside sat a family of 4, mother, father, 2 children in the back seat. Every one of them stared straight ahead, motionless, pale faces illuminated by the dashboard glow. The father's hands remained locked tightly on the steering wheel, but his eyes looked wrong, cloudy, dead. The station wagon continued deeper down the road without slowing once, and a second pair of headlights appeared farther back in the fog. Then another. More vehicles were coming. I backed away from the sedan as more headlights emerged through the fog, one after another. A slow line of vehicles rolled down the abandoned exit road in complete silence. Pickup trucks, old sedans, a delivery van with rust covering the sides. Every driver looked the same. Rigid posture, pale faces, eyes locked straight ahead. None of them acknowledged me. None of them even blinked. The station wagon disappeared farther down the road, swallowed by fog, while the next vehicle drifted past only a few feet away from me. An older man sat behind the wheel, gripping it so tightly his knuckles looked gray. His mouth hung slightly open, and across his forehead, dried blood. My stomach turned. These weren't ghosts. At least, not completely. They looked like people caught in the exact moment before dying. I stumbled backward toward the tow truck. That's when I noticed something worse. Every vehicle passing me was damaged somehow. Cracked windshields, collapsed roofs, missing doors. One SUV had scrape marks running all along the passenger side like it had been dragged against a guardrail at high speed. The final vehicle in the line passed slowly enough for me to see the driver clearly. A teenage girl. Both hands locked on the wheel. Mascara streaked down her pale cheeks, and written across the fogged windshield in shaky finger marks were 2 words: turn back. The SUV vanished into the darkness ahead. Then the road became quiet again. I climbed into the tow truck immediately and slammed the locks down. My hands shook badly enough that I nearly dropped the keys trying to start the engine. Come on, come on! The truck roared to life. I threw it into reverse, but the GPS screen suddenly flickered. The route had changed. The map no longer showed Interstate 87. No surrounding roads, no county lines, just a single thin road stretching through blackness. And farther ahead on the route, a blinking red symbol. At first, I thought it was another vehicle. Then I realized it was moving toward me. Fast. The fog outside thickened suddenly. Headlights appeared farther down the road, bright, much brighter than the others. These weren't drifting slowly, they were accelerating. I threw the truck into drive and slammed the accelerator. The tires spun violently against the wet pavement before catching. The tow truck surged forward through the darkness while the approaching headlights grew larger in the mirror behind me. Closer. Faster. And then the radio exploded with static again, but this time, it wasn't screaming. It was dispatch. Calm, clear. Unit 32, the voice said softly. You were told to disregard the call. The headlights behind me kept getting closer. Too fast. I pushed the tow truck harder, tires spraying water across the road as the fog swallowed everything beyond the beams. The GPS screen continued blinking red. Route recalculating. Then, turn around. My breathing had become shallow now. Every curve in the road looked the same trees, same guardrails, same cracked pavement. And then I saw something ahead that nearly made me lose control of the truck. Concrete barricades. The exit entrance. I slammed the brakes instinctively. The tow truck fishtailed hard across the wet pavement before stopping sideways in the road. I stared through the windshield in disbelief. I'd been driving forward for almost 10 minutes, but somehow I was back at the entrance to exit 14. The barricades sat exactly where I'd first seen them. One barrel tipped sideways, rainwater running down the faded "State Order" signs. Behind me, the approaching headlights stopped. A long line of vehicles now filled the road in the darkness. Dozens of them. Engines silent, headlights glowing through the fog. None of the vehicles moved anymore. They were just waiting. My radio crackled softly beside me. Then dispatch spoke again, calm as ever. "Unit 32? I didn't answer. "You entered a restricted roadway." Static hissed between each sentence. "Remain where you are." One of the headlights in the line suddenly switched off, then another, and another, until only a single pair remained. Bright, far brighter than the others. The vehicle began moving toward me slowly. As it approached, I realized it wasn't a car. It was a highway maintenance truck. Old state logo on the side, rust covering the doors, amber warning lights spinning weakly on top. The truck rolled closer until it stopped directly in front of my tow truck. Driver door opened. A man stepped out wearing an old reflective highway jacket soaked black from rain. For a second, I thought he was alive. Then he lifted his head, and I saw half his face had been crushed inward, like something massive had caved it in years ago. He pointed slowly toward the barricades behind me, toward the interstate. His ruined mouth twitched slightly. "Leave," he whispered. The line of silent vehicles behind him began moving again, fast, all at once. Headlights surged through the fog toward us. I slammed the truck into reverse and punched the accelerator. The tow truck crashed through the partially opened barricades, concrete scraping metal as I burst back onto Interstate 87. The second my tires hit the highway, the fog vanished. Traffic noise exploded around me. Wind, rain, passing cars. Normal. I nearly drove into the median trying to steady the wheel. Behind me, exit 14 sat dark and empty. Barricades fully closed. No headlights, no vehicles. Nothing. The overhead sign passed above me a few seconds later, except now, it didn't say exit 14 anymore. The sign was blank. Completely blank. By sunrise, I'd already decided I was quitting Harrison Towing. But before I left town that morning, I stopped for coffee at a gas station near the interstate. And hanging beside the register was a missing persons flyer. The picture showed a teenage girl with mascara running down her cheeks. Underneath the photo were the words, "Last seen near exit 14. 3 nights ago." If you made it this far into the story, then you officially survived exit 14. But honestly, I don't think that road is really closed. So tonight, before you take that late night drive home, pay attention to the exits you pass. And if you ever see one that doesn't appear on your GPS, keep driving. If you enjoyed this story and want more dark highway horror, abandoned places, strange rules, and terrifying encounters in the middle of nowhere, make sure to subscribe to Campfire Horror Stories, because there's always another story waiting in the dark. And trust me, some roads should stay forgotten.